What I'd love to do is hear from you what brings you here. You know, so let me just do that. I'll just walk around the room. I just want to know why you are here in this session. What you do, why you're here. What about you? You're studying game designing, and you want to choose to be a narrative designer. What about you? Just exploring, left, right, exploring. But there's no exploration without some kind of something at the back, right? So, what is at the back of the mind that has driven you here in the game design space? Okay, okay. What about you, sir? Why are you here today? You want to play the stories in your head. Nice. Well, that's what we do every day, no? Like when we fall in love with someone, and we don't know whether they have fallen in love with us. But the story is already playing in our head, right? That this is what is going to happen 2 years later or 3 years later, and how we will walk into the sunset or how we'll retire and live happily ever after. Our mind constantly keeps telling us stories. Even we don't even have to make up stories, right? What about you, ma'am? Why are you here? And I'm not an expert, but what do you do? You're a game developer. Ah, which can I ask which company? Or is it?
I was with Zynga.
Oh, you. Ah,
Yeah.
Zing. Oh,
My last company
not
was
a
Zynga.
chotu motu game company. Big company. Zinga. What about you? Why are you here? So storytelling is the heart of what you do, right? As a director. Ah, I see a lot of students also here. Huh? Where are you studying? Okay. And what are you studying? Computer science engineering student in a storytelling class. Why? I know computer science engineering versus storytelling. Yes, easy choice. Like stories. What about you, sir? You like writing stories. Wow, fantastic. What about you, sir? Very nice. Very nice. And where were you 3 years earlier? Nice. And how long have you been in gaming? Long time. Like 10, 12 years? Yeah, since I was a kid. Yeah. Maybe earlier since you were a kid, not as a producer, but as a consumer of games and gaming. What about you, sir? Why are you here? Hmm. Nice, nice. But why? Why do you want to learn more about storytelling? That's the question. What do you do? Behavioral science. Nice. Which company? Okay. No, no. Behavioral science, man. Oh, nice. Why, you know, nudge theory. Nudge theory, right? Giving people nudges and saying, how do I get people to do this? How do I get people to do that? Designing environments, designing prompts, which prompts work, which prompts don't work. Ah, who wrote Nudge? Richard Thaler, right? He won the Nobel Prize in Economics for writing Nudge. Started this behavioral science movement. What about you, sir? Nice, nice. Thanks, Rahul. And marketing as in brand management or marketing more sales responsibility? Brand management, including briefing the agency and creating films? No. Games? Oh, nice. What about you? Nice. What about you, ma'am? Using gameplay. Learn how to narrate stories using gameplay. All right. Let's start with some gameplay then. Let's do this. Uh, let's start with a little bit of a gameplay, physical gameplay, just to bring you a little bit into the space, uh, awaken some people who had a lot of late night parties. I can see. When did you crash? This morning? No, no. All sober, sober. We are all sober. Not just awake, but sober. Yeah. All right. Everyone, please stand up. Let's start with just awakening our bodies, and then we'll get into the story. Yeah. First, awakening the body and the mind. So, just waking it up, shaking it up a little bit. So, we'll start with a simple game. I won't make you do stretches. Don't worry. But that helps. So, if you want to do that for yourself. Whatever your body needs right now. We'll take a coffee break at about 11:30. If your body needs coffee, we'll have that as well. But for now, let's just play a simple game. It's called Simon Says. This is how it is played. You do whatever Simon asks you to do. So if I say Simon says scratch your head, you scratch your head. But if I say scratch your head without prefixing it with Simon says, don't do that. Yeah. So as simple as that. Let's do a simple one. Simon says snap your fingers. Simon says clap your hands. Simon says snap your fingers. Simon says clap your hands. Simon says snap your fingers. Simon says clap your hands. Simon says snap your fingers. Clap your hands. Simon didn't say that. Yeah. Thank you. You can stop now. But next time, for those who clapped, next time there would be consequences. Like I take away wristwatches, handbags, bracelets, etc. So be careful. What I'm trying to do is ensure that you are here mentally, physically. Say bye-bye to mobile phones, to everything else, to all distractions. You're writing me a check right now. You don't know this, but you've just written me a check for the next 2 hours of your life. You're giving me very valuable time, 2 hours of your life. When we write a check to buy a car, don't we check how much mileage it will give, what are the specifications, etc. So you've just written a check of one of the most expensive things, your time. So might as well be alert, check in fully, and make the max out of this session. Yeah. So let's play another one. Simon says snap your fingers. Simon says clap your hands. Simon says snap your fingers. Simon says clap your hands. Simon says hands up in the air. Simon says slap your thighs. Simon says hands up in the air. Simon says slap your thighs. Simon says hands up in the air. Simon says slap your thighs. Hands up in the air. All right. There are some people there at the back and here who are yet not awake, fully here. What can I do to shake you up a little bit more? All right. There are some people who've been doing it really well and who've been getting it right. How many of you have been getting it right? How many of you are feeling, yeah, I'm so good at this? Anybody? Yeah. Oh, I see. Hands coming up. Well, this one's for you then, brother. Yeah. Okay. Challenge round. Okay. Simon says snap your fingers. Simon says clap your hands. Simon says hands up in the air. Simon says slap your thighs. Simon says touch your head. Simon says touch your belly. Simon says touch your head. Simon says hands up in the air. Simon says touch your belly. Simon says touch your head. Simon says touch your heart. Where's your heart? Yes, I've been getting it right. Too quick. You need surprises in games. You need twists. Yeah, please sit. You need to design twists, surprises. If it's too predictable, the class has started. If it's too predictable and there are no surprises, then it's too boring, no? Uh, so the game designer has to be one step ahead of the game player. The storyteller has to be one step ahead of the story listener. And if somebody can predict, I'm sure you've sat through movies, series, web series, uh, reading novels where you are able to predict what's going to happen next. Give me an example. When was the last time when you were able to predict what was going to happen? Do you remember watching a murder mystery, a whodunit, or a thriller where you knew where it was going? Can somebody give me an example? When was the last time? Jog your memory, rack your brains. Yes, sir. Crime Patrol is predictable from the first 2 minutes itself. You can figure out what's going to happen. The entire, then how do they build the narrative? Is how did it happen? What has happened. Everybody knows. Sometimes you can also figure out how did it happen, who did it, etc. Yeah. You just first frame you see, then you know who the villain is. Yeah. Okay. Somebody raised a hand there at the back. Yes. Seven. Ah, nice film. Beautiful film. But you could predict what's going to happen, huh? Nice. Nice. Cult film as well. Yeah. Brahmastra, no? Okay. Very, very cliched. So you knew what's going to happen next. Once you figure out what's the superpower, what's the tension, what's the dilemma, then you know how it is going to be resolved. Yeah. And even then, sometimes when you know what's going to happen, and there are many stories where you know what's going to happen, the interest, how they retain your interest is how are they going to get there? I know eventually everybody knows in Ramayana what's going to happen. Rama is going to win, or in Mahabharata what's going to happen. But what keeps you hooked is, but how? But how? It's seemingly impossible. This task looks seemingly impossible. So how do they do this? Like if you look at 300, anybody watch that movie 300? You go into the movie hall, you know what's going to happen. But how do they do this? It's inconceivable. It's impossible that they can win. How do they win? And that keeps you hooked. So, and in that process, in that journey, there are stories to be told. There are surprises, there are twists, there are turns, and that keeps us hooked. So I encourage you to take your writing pads out, or start making notes wherever you'd like to make notes of anything that you find interesting as we dive into the world of stories. I'm going to start very slowly and ease you into the storytelling workshop, and I'm going to start with some quotes. These quotes are up there on the screen for you to see, so you can feel free to stand up, look at that quote. There are many places in the front, 2-3 places here on this chair, a couple of places here, so you can move forward so that it becomes easy to see. Yeah. In case you want to move forward, do that. This is Albert Einstein. If you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales. That's the complete quote. This is just half the quote. Yeah. Neil Gaiman, one of the most celebrated authors, writers, said this: fairy tales are more than true. Not just because they tell us that dragons exist, but also because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. That's why they matter. That's why stories matter, not just fairy tales. All stories. And you can replace the word dragon, but the overall play between good and evil. Why do we need stories in the first place? Because they give us hope. They give us hope. They validate all that is good in life. They reaffirm the place of goodness. And they remind us that it's okay to be the nice last bencher. The nice last benchers also win. It's okay to be the good guy. Good guys can also win. They reaffirm our hope in life. And that's why stories are important. Hmm? Observe these quotes very well because there is an exercise coming up for you. So, it's a workshop, it's not a lecture. In a workshop, we roll up our sleeves and do some work. So, observe these quotes very well. Hmm? The purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think upon. Morality plays, right versus wrong, dilemmas, ethical dilemmas. Should I kill? Should I not kill? Big decision. Should I let someone go? Should I release this person? Should I trust this person? Ethical dilemmas. But a good storyteller doesn't tell you what's the moral of the story by spelling it out. Let me tell you what is the moral of the story. It is there in the story. The player will find it. The reader will find it. The viewer will find it. It doesn't have to be spelt out. Well, if we expand the definition of stories to include ideology, to include narratives that we buy into, to include religion as a story, you can you can extend that to include religion because nobody's come back from dead to tell us which one is true. Which heaven is the true heaven? Swarglok, heaven, ya Jannat. Which is the true heaven? Nobody's come back from dead to tell us. So we keep believing. If you expand the definition of stories, then what they tell you is that more people have died in this world. More people have died in this world fighting for the stories that they believe in. In that sense, stories are the biggest weapons of mass destruction in the world. Very powerful. But stories are not good or bad. Stories are just like science. Science is not good or bad. With science, you can make medicine and save millions of lives. With science, you can also make bombs. Science is not good or bad. It's the people who use it, their intentions, which are good or bad. Similarly, stories are not good or bad. Stories are stories. They're powerful. It's how you use them. That reminds me of a quote from a movie called Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. Choose to tell your stories well. And I particularly like this one. One of the ways to reincarnate is to tell your story. I'll end with the pauses here, with the quotes here. I think it's a good time to pause here. What I'd like you to do is turn to your neighbor and talk to your neighbor about which quote appealed to you the most. I'll quickly run through the quotes. Which quote appealed to you the most? These are quotes on storytelling and why. Yeah. Time to turn to your partner and talk to your partner. 2-minute break. Quick. Now, turn to your partner, talk to them about why you like, which one you like. You're just warming up into the workshop. Yeah. Why do you like that quote? Which quote did you like? Why do you like it? Which quote speaks to your heart and why? How has it played some role in your life? Why is it true for you?
Done? Did you only share your perspective? Did you listen to the other's perspective or not? All right. Shall we move on? Okay. So, this is where I'll start the workshop. Welcome to this workshop on stories and storytelling and the use of narratives in gaming. The workshop is called What's Your Story? And I'll start with a confession. I'm not an expert in storytelling. You you know, I work at a firm called Storywallahs. I worked in advertising before that. I've done a lot of theatre, written a few ad film scripts, a couple of plays, songs, poems, stories. Some of them have been published. Some of my poems have been published in an anthology of Bangalore-based Hindi poets who live in the south, uh, and so on and so forth. But I am not an expert in storytelling. And the reason I say that is not out of humility, but out of honesty. You know, to be an expert in anything, like to learn how to play the veena well, to learn how to play the guitar well, takes a lifetime, sometimes many lifetimes. So I'm a student of storytelling, and there are many things about it that I have no clue about. But somebody also said this, that if you want to learn something, try teaching it, and you'll end up learning it faster. So I try to teach it so that I can deepen my own understanding of the topic. So there are two or three things that I'd like you to do. Ask me questions as they arise in your mind. Raise your hand and ask me that question as and when it arises. If you don't ask that question then and there, that question you'll forget. Most of us don't have the habit of writing down those questions. So you'll forget that question, and then we'll never be able to go back to that. We would have missed something precious. So interrupt me, ask me questions. Number two, when somebody asks me a question, please feel free to jump in and answer it on my behalf. I may not have the answer. So make this a dialogue rather than a lecture. Lastly, let's have fun. So I want to start at the start with stories. One of the newest forms in which stories are told are games. But I want to go back to source. So, can someone tell me what is the first story ever in the world? Cave paintings? Yeah. Okay. Verbal stories. Yeah. Oral storytelling tradition. The language. So before language, there was visual stories, perhaps, and after language, there were verbal stories, and after writing, there were written stories. After we discovered the typewriter, there were more written stories. Then the internet, and then all kinds of stories. Then intertextual stories and visual, all kinds of stories. Yeah, yeah. Somebody said Gilgamesh as well. Okay. So, nobody said Adam and Eve. I am surprised. Is that not the first story? No? Okay. So, yeah, well, you're right, in the sense that some of these stories can also be, if you don't believe in that story, then it's a fictional story, right? So it depends, do I believe in that story, then it's true. If I don't believe in that story, then it's a fictional story. But we can all believe on science-based stories. So cave paintings, yes, before we started speaking in a common language, and after the common language, oral stories, and after, the written word, written stories. So I want to go back to science, and I want you to tell a story about one of the first stories. So the year was 1839. Let's go back to 1839. And there was a British explorer called Henry Austen Layard. And Henry Austen Layard set out to find a route to Ceylon. You know Ceylon? Sri Lanka. So he wanted to find a path to Sri Lanka. And, those were the days. Remember the days when Hyun sang? Remember Hyun sang? The Chinese traveler, Silk Route. Yeah. Remember Vasco da Gama? Yeah. He wanted to go somewhere, he ended up going somewhere else. Who discovered America? He wanted to go somewhere else, ended up somewhere else, etc. So back in the days, people were mapping the world, not with a desire to map the world, but they were unconsciously, they ended up mapping the world because they were discovering, they were traveling. So there was this explorer called Henry Austin Layard, and he wanted to, find a route to Ceylon. And he stepped out with his team, bunch of explorers, and when they reached Mesopotamia, present day Iran, Iraq, he saw a strange sight. He saw these strange mounds in the desert. And he instructed his fellow travelers to start digging. Khodo, kya hai? Let's start digging. And they started digging, and upon digging, they chanced upon one of the oldest, one of the most significant discoveries for human civilization. They had chanced upon the city of Nineveh. Nineveh is older than Mohenjo-daro, just to give you perspective. Yeah. And so the archaeologists came in, they cordoned off the area, and they started digging. And what do archaeologists find when they start digging? They find, pots, some kind of weapons. But here on this site, the archaeologists found these kind of clay tablets and these kind of images. And these kind of clay tablets were scattered all over the site. So it was, now you can see it's written in some language that most of us cannot read. That's where they called in the linguists. And the linguists came in and started studying this language, which is called the cuneiform language. It took them 10 years to decode this. And when you decode a language, what happens? Then it's like piecing a puzzle, no? Then you cracked a code and you can read the story. So they put all of it together. It was a story. And they carbon dated this. They found it to be 5,000 years old. So these clay tablets are lying in some museum around the world, or traveling in some museum around the world. This story is called the Epic of Gilgamesh. So this is the first physical story, physical evidence of a story apart from cave paintings. This is the first written story that we have evidence of in the world. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Now, I'm going to maybe invite someone, why don't I invite you, sir? You have a nice, bold voice, to just read out it's a very long story, but if you could just read out the summary of the story. Yeah?
The Epic of Gilgamesh. Summary. Kingdom of Uruk has fallen under the terrible shadow of a great and mysterious evil. The source of the threat is traced to a monstrous figure, Humbaba, who lives half across the world at the heart of a remote forest. Our hero, Gilgamesh, goes to the armorers who equip him with special weapons, a great bow and a mighty axe. He then sets out on a long, hazardous journey to Humbaba's distant lair, where he finally comes face to face with the monster. After a series of taunting exchanges, they embark on a titanic struggle. Against such supernatural powers, it seems Gilgamesh cannot possibly win. But finally, by a superhuman feat, he manages to kill his monstrous opponent. The shadowy threat has been lifted. Gilgamesh has saved the world and can return home triumphant.
And marry the king's daughter also, right? That's how these stories end. Wonderful. Thank you. What a wonderful voice. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Does that story, this is the summary of the first ever story, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Does it sound familiar to you? Anyone? Does it sound like, hey, I've heard this story before? A hero's journey, yeah. But that's the archetype, yeah, of the story. That's the archetype. But does it sound familiar to some story? Star Wars? Any other story?
I think this is the universal pattern and template on which stories that immerse a person
Take him on a journey. So here's what I'm going to do. Why are let me ask you a question. A lot of games are based on movies. A lot of movies are based on games. Why? A lot of games are based on books. Why? Yeah. All of this, but think like a no. Don't just think as a director. Don't just think as a writer. Also think from a producer's perspective. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to make a movie or to make a game. Now, how many games are launched every year and how many don't succeed? So that's the money that has gone down the drain. How many movies are made every year and don't succeed? That's money gone down the drain. So, how does one reduce the risk? To make a movie or to make a game on something that is tried and tested. How do you discover what is tried and tested? A book. So why, so if Harry Potter sells a lot of books, the Harry Potter movie will have a lot of, if the Lord of the, if the Lord of the Rings sells a lot of books, then you can make a movie on that. You know that that's a successful book. So it's a story that works. So you reduce the risk on that. So the same happens in, so don't you see that in Bollywood? Chetan Bhagat writes a book, 3 Mistakes of My Life. It's a wildly successful book, and it gets made into a movie called, 3 Mistakes of My Life. Kai Poche. 5 point someone, 3 idiots. But you get the drift. So the same happens in Hollywood. And Hollywood, what it started doing was it discovered that one of the ways to reduce risk is to find a story that already works. Now there was an author who was writing wildly successful books. That author's name was Ian Fleming. Anybody? The character? 007, James Bond. So I am going to read out to you. You remember the story? I am going to read out to you the summary of the first movie in the James Bond franchise. How many of you know what's the first movie in the James Bond franchise? Dr. No. It was made in the year 1962. You've seen it, huh? Okay. Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Hey, let's clap for him. He was not even born when this movie was made. Yeah, but he is aware of it. Now, I'll tell you why it's important to be aware of these things as we go along. If you want to be a successful game developer, designer, storyteller, marketeer, why it's important to immerse ourselves in the history of stories. Why? Why? Because history repeats itself. Rudyard Kipling said this, that if history was not taught in the way it is taught, but if history was taught in the form of stories, it would not repeat itself. We've learned history through emphasis on dates. World War I, when did it happen? World War II, when did it happen? It doesn't matter when it happened. What matters is why it happened. That's when we learn the lessons. Yeah. So, 1962, Ian Fleming, the movie Dr. No. Here's the story. The Western world has fallen under the shadow of a great and mysterious evil. A great and mysterious evil. The source of the threat is traced to a monstrous figure, a mad and deformed scientist, Dr. No. Baba, who lives half across the world in an underground cavern on a remote island. Our hero, James Bond, goes to the armorers. Who's the armorer? Q. What will Q give James Bond? A pen that works like a gun, a watch that blows up like a bomb, and things like that. The modern equivalents of the bow and arrow and the axe. So he goes to the armorer who equips him with special weapons. He sets out on a long, hazardous journey to Dr. No's headquarters, where he finally comes face to face with the monster. How many of you see James Bond movies? In 20 out of 26 James Bond movies, when the villain meets James Bond, he has no idea this guy is James Bond. So he says, well, let me take you on a conducted tour of my facility so that you can blow it up later. And then the villain discovers, oh, this guy is James Bond. He's come to kill me. And then, after a series of taunting exchanges, they embark on a titanic struggle, a battle of a kind that has never taken place before. Faced with an adversary with such great powers as Dr. No, it seems Bond cannot possibly win. He's about to die, just like Gilgamesh, when finally, with superhuman feat and power and his special weapons, he manages to kill his opponent. The shadowy threat has been lifted. The Western world has been saved. Bond can return home triumphant and not marry the king's daughter, so that he can keep playing. For 5,000 years, you've been listening to the same story. For 26 James Bond movies, you've been listening to the same story. Hum Baba is Shakal. Hum Baba is Mogambo. Do you see the story? So all of you who want to design successful games, are you reading the stories? Are you immersing yourself in the stories that have been told? There's something here. So I am going to take you on a journey back in time. Who's this guy? Give me the names. Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi from the largest selling movie franchise in the world, the Star Wars. So when we see the first one, I'm sure there are many Star Wars fans here, and if you're not Star Wars fans, then you're not a gaming fan. That's a test for me. Yeah, if you're not a Star Wars fan, then you're not a true gamer. But so if you want to get into gaming, watch Star Wars. If you want to understand stories, watch Star Wars. Now, when we see, I'm going to take you back to the first edition. You have not seen the second. You have not seen the third. You have not seen the fourth. Who's Luke Skywalker? He's an orphan child. His mother and father have died. Where is he living? He's growing up in a small place called Tatooine. That's the name of the village. Anyone remembers the place? Tatooine. With his uncle. Living with his uncle, being brought up by his aunt and uncle. What does he want to do? Simple dreams. He has simple dreams. I want to be a pilot. I want to race cars and I want to race aeroplanes. I want to be a pilot. One day a strange man with a beard and a hood comes to town and says, Master Skywalker, you are not an ordinary child. You are destined to be a Jedi. Embrace your destiny and the destiny of the world will change. And this guy goes and embraces his destiny, and when he does that, he meets a girl called Leia. And when he meets Leia, we all get excited and we feel, kuch hoga. Nothing happens. Something happens, but nothing happens. And we get the largest selling movie franchise in the world. Many years later, we come to a different world. In that world lives a hobbit called Frodo Baggins. Frodo Baggins has simple dreams. That I want to travel the world and I want to see the world. He lives in a village called the Shire with his uncle. And one day, a strange man with a beard and a strange headgear comes to town and says, Mr. Baggins, you are not an ordinary hobbit.
Embrace your destiny and the destiny of the world will change. And we have the second largest selling movie franchise in the world,
Lord of the Rings. Now, it's no longer the second largest selling movie franchise, it's the third largest. The reason for that is a young boy called Harry Potter.
Now, if you look at Harry Potter, what's his story? Remember, Luke Skywalker? Harry Potter is an orphan kid. His mom and dad have been killed. He lives in a village with his uncle and aunt in a room which is not even a room under the staircase. He has simple dreams and simple desires. Owl comes and delivers letters, but those letters, one tries not, everybody tries that these letters should not reach him. On the way to school one day, a strange man with a beard and a strange headgear sits on the school bus behind him, taps him on the shoulder and says, "My name is Hagrid. You are not an ordinary child. You are a wizard. Embrace your destiny, Master Potter, and take that train. Once you take that train, the destiny of the world will change." And he goes and takes that train and he meets a girl called Hermione. And we all get excited. Abhi kuch hoga. Tanga happens. The three of the largest movie franchises in the world
are the same stories. If you study UI UX, then you can see that the interface keeps changing. The landscape of the story keeps changing. The characters in the story keep changing. But if you look at the story structure, the basic premise of the story, it's the same story. Study stories if you want to create massive, popular games. Study stories that exist. If you want to learn music, how do you learn music? Sare gama pada nisa, do re mi fa sol la to do. You study the notes and then you study the permutations and combinations of the notes. If you want to study art, what do? You start by drawing you don't just start with a pen and paper or a pencil and paper or paint. You study the art that has been done by the other artists, right? You start by looking at. So are you looking at the stories that already exist? Same story. We just didn't realize it. Like Amir Khan said in a movie, "Phirki le rahe hain." Yeah? They're gaming us. They are gaming us and they are telling us the same story again and again, and we didn't even realize it. And we paid a lot of money. We are being gamed. Let's go a little further. I am going to take you back to the times of your mom and dad. Tell me, what is the connection?
Death. Who said that? Death. Yeah, ultimate death. Right? So, Ek Duje Ke Liye is a story where Kamal Hassan, maybe the first Hindi film that he acted in, falls in love with Rati Agnihotri, and one is a South Indian, one is a North Indian. They want to marry, but the world opposes this union. So they decide, if I can't marry you in this world, I'll marry you in that world. That's the same story in Amir Khan's debut film with Juhi Chawla. What was that movie? Qayamat Se Qayamat Tak.
What story is that? Which story is that? I'm asking you. Romeo and Juliet. Who wrote that story? Are you sure? Are you sure? What is Romeo and Juliet? A boy and girl fall in love. They can't unite. They decide to kill themselves and unite in the afterworld. What about Laila Majnu? Isn't that older than Romeo and Juliet? What about Shiri Farhad? Isn't that older than Laila Majnu? What about Heer Ranjha? Is it that older than Romeo and Juliet? I am not saying Shakespeare is copying, not at all. He studied the stories that existed. He changed the landscape. He changed the characters. Are you studying the stories that exist? Something to think about. How many of you have seen a movie called Ishq Zadeh? Raise your hands. Which story is that? Romeo and Juliet. How many of you have seen Titanic? Titanic, it's a completely fictional story. The ship, there was a ship called Titanic. That's truth. That ship sank. That's truth. The story is a love story. It's a Romeo and Juliet retelling. In the context of it, it's a story which is about characters which takes place in a universe called Titanic. Titanic is the universe for that story. It's the UI for that story. For a Romeo and Juliet story. So somebody said, I'm going to locate my story in the world of Titanic. Now that's amazing imagination. Where do you want to, where all can you locate Romeo and Juliet? I haven't seen a Romeo and Juliet yet where a dog wants to marry a particular bitch or wants to unite with a particular she dog and the world opposes them. Nobody's done that yet. Maybe it's too ridiculous to do. Huh? Somebody's done it. Which one? See? Romeo, Juliet done there. What is the person doing there? He's saying, I am going to locate it in a different universe. So, this is a workshop. It's not a lecture. By the way, it's not just Ishq Zadeh, it's also Goliyon ki Ram Leela, Ras Leela, etc. That's also Romeo and Juliet. And many Romeo and Juliets you've seen. By the way, how many of you have seen Dil Wale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge? It's interesting that till the railway station scene, it's Romeo and Juliet. And Shah Rukh Khan could have died on the railway station, it would have become Romeo and Juliet. The only change in that story is in the last frame, Amrish Puri says, Ja Simran. So it's not Romeo and Juliet in the last 5 minutes of the film. For 95% of the film, it's Romeo and Juliet. With a happy ending. That's the movie that was made. Yeah. So are you studying the stories? So here's an exercise. Think for 5 minutes of an interesting landscape where you want to locate Romeo and Juliet. Think about, Titanic is a landscape. Goliyon ki Ram Leela, Ras Leela is a landscape. Yeah, whatever that movie is. What is that movie? Ram Leela, yeah. So that's a landscape. That dog movie, that's a landscape. Yeah. Ishq Zadeh is a landscape, which is of the drug lords and wars and Bombay. That's a landscape. So simple exercise. You have a question? Yeah. Oh yeah, think about it, but let everyone also think along with you. Think about a landscape. Think for 2 minutes. What's the landscape where you want to locate, where you can locate Romeo and Juliet? Make the landscape rich, interesting. Think Pandora, for example. Pandora, anyone with me so far? Where is that world? Avatar, right? So think about landscape. Think different kinds of landscape. Yeah, it could be the underground world. It could be the above ground. What kind of landscape do you want to locate? So imagine you are making the next Romeo Juliet. Are they human characters? Are they non-human characters? Are they characters from this world? Are they characters from other world? Are they robots? Think about it. Once you've thought about it, share your story idea, the location idea, the universe idea with the person on your right or left and listen to theirs. Now, when you listen to something, appreciate theirs and hope that they appreciate yours. Yeah?
Can I actually, the dog falls in love with a female dog thing? I've seen it play out with my brother's pet Labrador bitch,
Because the dog was in heat, perhaps. because he's a who just loves. Yeah. So sometimes it takes observation to see stories play out all around us in our lives. Use that. Use that. Use that. So 2 minutes for you to think about the landscape. Imagine the landscape. Discuss with your partner. Receive the landscape from your partner. What is the landscape where they are locating their Romeo and Juliet? Where are you locating your Romeo and Juliet? Who's your Romeo and Juliet? Think about it. It's a story workshop. Flex your story muscles now. Yes. It's a long session. You're never too late. Or you can, this is a good place to settle in for table discussions. These are all Romeo and Juliets on the screen, by the way. And there are many more. We just didn't realize that these were Romeo and Juliets. Have you seen West Side Story?
Did you just hear an interesting idea? How many of you just heard an interesting idea from a table mate? That you said, hey, that's interesting. I just heard an interesting idea called Romeo and Juliet, not Romeo and Juliet. Huh? I just heard another interesting idea about a landscape where Romeo and Juliet are bugs. Sexy bugs. Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs. Romeo and Juliet inside Minecraft. Yeah. Okay, give me more. What are the strangest words that you have heard just now in the last 5 minutes for your Romeo and Juliet? This is the best idea I've heard today. You know what's Romeo and Juliet, right? Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lovers who cannot, everyone, Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lovers who cannot unite in this world. And therefore they decide that we will end our lives and unite in another world. Now listen to this.
The catch is you can never die, and you are basically suffering from being undead itself. So they have to find a way to break the undead curse to free the other person from suffering, but that's the exactly. So exactly.
But they can't die. They can't die. Nice, fantastic. Let's give a clap. Two sperms. So you got to, you know, your Romeo and Juliet. Yes. So, sperm and an egg got to eat. Two sperms. Two sperms would make that a gay Romeo. Two Romeos, no Juliet. All right, all right. Welcome back, everyone. You got your musical instruments, your hands. So I go first, you go second. Let's see if we can make some music together. What this chutter putter is happening? Let's see. I go first, you go second. Nice, nice. Here's another one. Find the commonality. Actually, just tell me which story is this? And what is the specific incident from Ramayana? Yeah, so Lakshman Rekha. Yeah, now find me a parallel story to Lakshman Rekha. Think story structure.
Pandora's box.
Okay, nice. But Pandora's box is more that once it comes out of the Lakshman, once you cross that, then you don't know what lies that side. That's where you're connecting it, right? So don't cross this, because once you open, so there's a caveat that, you know, if you open this, there's a covenant. If that covenant is broken, that if you open this, then, you know, I am not responsible for what happens next. So some line should not be crossed, some boxes should not be opened. That's where you're connecting this? Fantastic. Fantastic. That don't cross the line. Yes. Nice. Can you just say that, you know, yeah. Vampire Academy. You must, you know, vampire movies. Please watch vampire movies. Covenants. You know, you must not do this. Yes, sir. Interesting connection. Someone else? Dahan. Set in him. There's something there. So don't go there. Think, okay, let me take you to an interesting place. Yes, sir. Yes, interesting connection. Let me take you to children's stories. Go straight to your grandmother's house. Don't pluck flowers. There are wolves in the forest. That wolf is called Ravana. There are wolves in the forest. That wolf is called Ravana. Don't cross the line. By the way, psychoanalysts have called these kind of stories puberty tales. There are puberty tales in all kinds of cultures. When girls, when they come of age, they are told, don't cross the line. That's the story. Don't cross the line. That's the framework. When you cross the line, there are dangers. There are Pandora's box. If you cross the line, something will happen. You remember a movie called Mummy? Don't cross the line. Don't try to unearth the past. Hindi wala unearth will happen. If you try to unearth the past, some unearth will happen. Don't cross the line. So, covenants, interesting. Let's see if I can push you to make some connections now. You have to, if you want to, again, I'll say this again, and perhaps for the, maybe I'll say this 25 times. You want to be a good game designer, good marketer, good behavioral scientist, you need to learn the stories, because stories are how we have shaped people's behavior. If you want to change people's behavior, you need to look at stories, right? Actions come from belief systems. Belief systems come from the stories we buy into. So, connect these two. Find the connections. Yeah. So, interesting. Both of them were destined to be killed at birth. Okay. Yeah. Both of them don't, get lucky in love. So they have, one guy has Radha, this guy has, Harmani. Then both of them were orphaned kids, orphaned at birth, grew up with foster parents. Both of them grew up with this guy escaped with a scar on the forehead. That guy escaped on a basket on a river. Who was threatened by their existence? Kans Mama? Voldemort. Voldemort had a prophecy that the child of potters will kill you. Kans Mama had a prophecy, the child of Devki and Vasudev will kill you. 7 escaped. 8th, Balram. 8th, 7th, Balram. 8th, Balkrishna. Both escaped. Now, this boy, growing up, before coming to Hogwarts, did he have any idea I am a special child? Did anyone in Hogwarts know, except a select few, that this guy is a special child? Most of them had no clue. Did people know this guy when he was growing up is a special child? No. He was stealing butter, growing up, playing pranks, grazing cows, learning to play the flute. This guy was growing up. How did the world discover that this guy is not an amazing, he's not a normal person, but is an amazing person, has some special superpowers? How does the world discover that this child is not an ordinary child, but has superpowers? How does the world discover that this child is not an ordinary child? The first discovery, both of them tame a snake. 5,000 years apart, millions of miles, hundreds of miles apart, both of them tame a snake. Learn the stories. Who wrote this story? Okay. Who wrote the story? Disney at some level, right? So now let's try and figure out the story. Anybody remembers how many fans of Lion King? Okay, let's deconstruct the story line by line. What happens in the story? There's a king. The king's name is Mufasa. The king and the queen lord over the jungle. They have a baby called Simba. The king has a brother called the Scar wants the king's throne, the king's wife, and the kingdom for himself. So Scar conspires with the hyenas and kills, blames. Simba runs away, grows up singing Hakuna Matata. Naila comes to remind him, you are not an ordinary, you are destined to come back. He comes back, kills, Scar, restores the order. Why did you say Shakespeare? Which story of Shakespeare?
The one in which there's a king and a queen and a son and a brother and a kingdom. So Hamlet.
Okay, let's study Hamlet.
Hamlet, the Crown Prince. The full name? What's the story called? Hamlet, the Crown Prince. There's a king and a queen. The king's younger brother wants the king's wife and the king's kingdom. So he conspires with 3 witches, ghosts, yeah, conspires, hyenas, yeah, conspires, gets the king killed, blames the son. The prince runs away, grows up singing Hakuna Matata, comes back, kills his uncle, reclaims the kingdom.
That prince is played by an actor called Shahid Kapoor in a movie called Heather. And Naila is Shraddha Kapoor. Do you remember?
Now, the 3 equivalents, well, there are no hyenas here, but there are 3 madmen. Do you remember the reference to the 3 witches or the 3 hyenas in this movie? The 3 madmen, the grave diggers. Yeah? So, it's set in a different landscape called Kashmir, where there are intelligence agents. This guy wants his elder brother killed and his elder brother's wife, Tabu, he covets her. So he informs the IB agents that my elder brother is working for Pakistan or RAW. They come, take him away. He gets Tabu, he blames the son goes away, studies in Aligarh or Lucknow, meets Shraddha Kapoor, comes back, kills his uncle.
The beauty and the challenge lies in telling this story in a way that nobody realizes which story you are telling. That's the storyteller's challenge. That you tell it in a way that nobody realizes. That this game is based on which plot. Otherwise, it's not immersive. A game has to be immersive. If it is immersive, you are not analyzing story. You are just immersed. If it is not immersive, you are saying, ye to Shakespeare hai. Then you are not, if you can see it as Shakespeare, you are not immersed. So your challenge is to locate it in a way that nobody understands this. Nobody understood this, no? When Lion King was Shakespeare story.
But beautiful. What a wonderful adaptation. So some of the best games, I want you to go back today and think about some of the best games and say, what are these based on? Yeah, please.
Hamlet, Hamlet is very different from Lion King because Hamlet does not have any kind of happy ending. In fact, it's tragedy after tragedy after accident after accident.
Yeah. So you base that story on that and then you create your own. But the fundamental story premise is Hamlet. It's the younger brother who wants the elder brother's kingdom. The elder brother's wife blames the prince comes back, avenge the throne. That's the basic story structure. Now you locate it in a forest, you give support characters, there's a pig or a wild boar, there's a bug, there's something else, etc. You reduce the tragedies in the story, you shorten it, move towards, because ultimately it's Disney. Thinking about Disney, let's take the Disney films. Name classic Disney films. Finding Nemo. Okay, Let's go back in time. Do you remember a movie called a deer? Bambi. How does the movie begin? The mother dies. Okay. How does Finding Nemo begins? Mother dies. Disney likes to kill mothers. Give me more Disney films. Father dies. Right? A variation on that. Not mother dies, but father dies. Disney has something against parents. Because the moment the film begins, the mother dies or the father dies. Think about Phantom. Think about Spider-Man. Think about Amitabh Bachchan, Lawaris. Think about Amitabh Bachchan, Mukaddar Ka Sikandar. Think about Batman. Think about, many superheroes. Think about, being orphaned. Harry Potter, orphan child. Bal Krishna, orphan child. Luke Skywalker, orphan child. Luke, is there something happening or not? Isn't. We discover that later. But up, you've gone to the fourth film, no? You're not starting at the first film. But you go through stages of, right? Technically, even Krishna is not an orphan child. Right? But, grew up with foster parents. Technically, in the metaverse, if there is metaverse, uh, in the third movie, don't Harry Potter's parents come back in a dream sequence and advise him what to do? So they have not orphaned him. They say, in the magic world, we will come back. Advice is available to those who seek it. What is that Dumbledore dialogue? There's some that dialogue like that. No, in what is the house that Harry Potter comes from? Gryffindor. In Gryffindor, help is available to those who seek it. Do you remember that dialogue? So think about orphaned kids. What is the biggest fear of a child? That I will be separated from my parent. The biggest fear of a child. So stories are based on human fears or human hopes. Our biggest dreams or our biggest fears. That's what marketeers also do. Brands are built on our biggest fears or our biggest aspirations. Hope. This beauty product gives me hope. This product, it helps me overcome my fear, my anxiety, etc. Right? So understand human fears, hopes, desires. We travel to another universe called game. But in that universe, what we are fighting are our real fears. We are overcoming good, bad, our dilemmas. I will have to leave my father behind. I will have to, and in that orphan state, the child comes into their own. Because you have to find your own devices in the foreign land where rules from this world didn't apply, and you are on your own. You come into your own. Through that story, through that character that I'm playing in this game, I am coming into my own. I get this confidence, I get this belief that I can survive. I am a fighter. No matter how different the worlds and universes are, I have the resources, I have the superpower, I have the friends, I have the resolve within me to overcome the challenges. Stories give us that hope. Or fear, which are morality tales. That if you do this is what will happen. Don't cross the line, etc. Somebody else was raising a hand. Yes, brother. Just speak a little louder so that everyone can hear you.
Stories emerging from stories. If you relate this Lion King, you can compare easily with the Nanda dynasty, where Chanakya, same thing happened. It's exactly.
You have to.
Yeah.
So study Ramayana.
Yeah.
Study Mahabharata. Suraj Barjatya was making Ramayana. If you look at Suraj Barjatya's movies, you will see that he's remade Ramayana many times. Give me the name of a Ranbir Kapoor film that is based on Mahabharata. Rajniti. It is Mahabharata. There is Katrina Kaif in it. You haven't seen Katrina Kaif in Mahabharata. Like, imagine Katrina Kaif, Mahabharata, but she's there in Mahabharata. Watch Rajniti. Right? Study, see the stories. It's such a amazingly well-produced movie. One of the films where, Ranbir Kapoor doesn't play classic Ranbir Kapoor. He's a character with grey shades in Rajniti. Because Mahabharata is grey. Ramayana is more black and white. Mahabharata is very grey. No, here it's classic. Ram is pure white. Ravana is pure black. Rama will not do anything grey. But Arjun does grey. He shoots Karna.
But even in Ramayana, Ram hides behind a tree and shoots Bali.
He does. There is cheating. But
Bali challenges him and Ram explains.
Yeah, he's forced to cheat. Yeah, and he dies of guilt after that. When Rama doesn't die literally, but he dies of guilt after that. There's this whole passage in the longer Ramayana, if you read, he's, overtaken by grief. But you're right. So you had a question. Somebody at the back had a very interesting question. Can you ask that question now? Yeah. So don't we feel, yeah, please. Why do we need to study the stories? Why should we follow the structures? Good. It, nice. Why not we create our own structure? What a fantastic question. Everybody clap for that question. Why don't we create our own structure? Here's why. Here's why. To create your own structure, first learn the structures. Yeah. First learn the structures. You know, I encourage you, each one of you, to look at a music video where A.R. Rahman is singing a classical song called Aaj Jaane Ki Zid Na Karo. Now it's based on a classical raga. He's singing that, but he breaks the rhythm. That song that Rahman has sung is a ghazal by Abida Parveen, or not Abida Parveen, but Begum Sultana or somebody else. Farida Khanum. It's a Farida Khanum song. Old singer, Farida Khanum. Aaj Jaane Ki Zid Na Karo. But he's singing it by breaking the rules. And he's doing it very aesthetically. Anybody else who does it, if you don't know the classic structure and you try to do that, it will look very unaesthetic. So to make it an aesthetic story, you have to know the rules. Have you had all these movies where you heard the dialogue, system ko andar se hi todna padta hai, etc. You heard that, right? So you have to first be within the system to break the system. Yeah. So come from deep immersion in the system, then break it, then play with it. So if you know Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni Sa, then you can play with it. If you know Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Do, you can play with music. But when somebody who knows the basic notes plays with the notes, it's very aesthetic. When somebody who doesn't know it tries to play with it, yeah? So that's why we must immerse in it. Then you play with it. So time for me to recommend books. Yes. You care for the character. You are invested in the character, that what will happen to this character. Absolutely. The registration desk. I am learning. He's just come. Right? Did you see that? What a beautiful example, right? And a lot of there are a lot of management trainees at the hotel, at the reception, and they're wearing a badge called I am helping or I am learning. I am learning. The moment you see that badge, I can give this guy 1 minute more. He'll take 2 minutes more, but it's okay, I'll wait. Yeah? You're immediately invested in that character. Yeah. So the first thing is, how do I get you to invest in my character? Well, kill off the father, kill off the mother. Then what will happen to this guy. So to know the rules, then break the rules. To break the rules, know the rules. So let me suggest 1 or 2 books for game developers to just know, so that you can break the rules later, right? So what is the Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni Sa? The 7 basic notes of stories, the 7 basic plots. Amazing book written by Christopher Booker, and of course Joseph Campbell. So Star Wars. Steven Spielberg spent a lot of time with Joseph Campbell as consultant, creating the universe for Star Wars. Joseph Campbell, author of The Power of Myth and The Hero's Journey.
Also, the hero with 1,000 faces.
The Hero with 1,000 Faces, Oriental mythology, Western mythology, many books. So look at mythology. Interestingly, Steven Spielberg looked at mythology and the universe of mythology to create a future-facing world called Star Wars.
Not Spielberg, I think it was George Lucas who started.
George Lucas. Thank you. Does it not feel then that maybe it's a copy, maybe I'm doing this, etc. So I have answered that question that, nobody should know. But there's a difference between copying and inspiration, right? Snake. Balkrishna and Harry Potter. Well, you can change the snake, you can make it some other kind of a danger. But why snake? Why for universes we've looked at snake as a certain kind of, what does that symbol represent? Why is it so important in symbology? Yeah, yeah. Somebody that doesn't have leg, why does it sort of, something that lives under the ground, etc. Yeah. So, worth studying. So, let's look at originality and the concept of originality and how it is overrated. Brother, audio. Uh, audio.
The act of creation is surrounded by a fog of myths. Myths that creativity comes via inspiration, that original creations break the mold, that they're the products of geniuses, and appear as quickly as electricity can heat a filament. But creativity isn't magic. It happens by applying ordinary tools of thought to existing materials. And the soil from which we grow our creations is something we scorn and misunderstand, even though it gives us so much, and that's copying. Put simply, copying is how we learn. We can't introduce anything new until we're fluent in the language of our domain, and we do that through emulation. For instance, all artists spend their formative years producing derivative work. Bob Dylan's first album contained 11 cover songs. Richard Pryor began his stand-up career doing a not very good imitation of Bill Cosby. And Hunter S. Thompson retyped The Great Gatsby just to get the feel of writing a great novel. Nobody starts out original. We need copying to build a foundation of knowledge and understanding. And after that, things can get interesting.
So, what happens is after that, if you just remain that at that level, then you will be a mimicry artist. Mimicry artist who can only copy. But remember Sachin Tendulkar? He started off copying Gavaskar. The key to the greatness of Tendulkar is you are able to go beyond that. And you find your own rhythm. Every artist starts by drawing the works of other artists. Then you find your canvas, your voice. And then you start expressing yourself. Take the simplest example, Sonu Nigam. Which artist was he singing?
All of them.
But classic, Muhammad Rafi, more than anybody else. So Sonu Nigam started off singing Muhammad Rafi. And he was the Muhammad Rafi Jr. And then he finds his own voice. And then now we sing Sonu Nigam classics. You have to find your voice. But you start somewhere. And you start by immersing yourself in the works and deepening yourself in the works. And then you will find that there are, at some level, there's this argument also being made that all stories that can be told have already been told. Yeah, all new stories are then, therefore, permutations and combinations in new landscapes. Right? So you are locating in a new landscape with a male bug, with a female bug, or an AI or a chat bot, etc. Yeah. I want you to take that not as a dictum, but to challenge that and say, hey, but there is more newer stories to be told. And then put everything that you've learned about stories to create a new narrative. Then life becomes exciting. Then we start playing. And that play is what I'm inviting you to participate in.
After we've grounded ourselves in the fundamentals through copying, it's then possible to create something new through transformation, taking an idea and creating variations. This is time-consuming tinkering, but it can eventually produce a breakthrough. James Watt created a major improvement to the steam engine because he was assigned to repair a Thomas Newcomen steam engine. He then spent 12 years developing his version. Christopher Latham Scholes modeled his typewriter keyboard on a piano. This design slowly evolved over 5 years into the QWERTY layout we still use today. And Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb. His first patent was improvement in electric lamps, but he did produce the first commercially viable one after trying 6,000 different materials for the filament. These are all major advances, but they're not original ideas so much as tipping points in a continuous line of invention by many different people. But the most dramatic results can happen when ideas are combined. By connecting ideas together, creative leaps can be made, producing some of history's biggest breakthroughs. Johann Gutenberg's printing press was invented around 1440, but almost all its components had been around for centuries. Henry Ford and the Ford Motor Company didn't invent the assembly line.
So the another way of answering your question is, you take components and you put them together in ways never done before. For example, Flipkart. One can argue that Flipkart is a copy of Amazon. It's not. Two Bansals who worked at Amazon came into India and realized that there's no Amazon. They launched as a copy. So like Sonu Nigam singing Mohammed Rafi songs. But they soon realized that India has very low credit card penetration. In US, we go to McDonald's, we pay first, eat later. In India, we eat first, pay later. So in a country with low credit card penetration, this is not going to work. So they had to come up with something called COD, cash on delivery, not an Amazon innovation. So you take something that exists, then you put new landscape, understanding. Many years later, when Amazon comes into India, it has to copy Flipkart, cash on delivery. So your challenge as a game writer is to understand your landscape and say, hey, here's what I'm taking. This is a classic story, because I know that a game producer wants a success. So here's evidence of success. Here's a story that works. It's a classic story. Now, how am I going to reduce the risk and still offer newness? How am I going to combine things? So assembly line. Who invented assembly line? Where was the first? Very bizarre story. Assembly line. Not Ford. Slaughterhouses. Slaughterhouse. Butchers. Where they would take an animal and somebody else would specialize in the shoulder, somebody else would specialize in skinning, somebody else would specializing in mincemeat. Assembly line. This guy saw that and said, I can bring this to manufacturing. So, the ability to see something and connect, make connections in your mind, good story, resides there, and say, how do I locate this in newer contexts? Lion King is nothing but the ability to see something, Shakespeare, and say, how do I locate it in a new context and make a children's movie? Amazing transportation from there, right? So,
interchangeable parts, or even the automobile itself. But they combined all these elements in 1908 to produce the first mass-market car, the Model T. And the internet slowly grew over several decades as networks and protocols merged. It finally hit critical mass in 1991 when Tim Berners-Lee added the World Wide Web. These are the basic elements of creativity: copy, transform, and combine.
and the simplicity is this, a lot of people stop at copying. They don't go to the next two steps, which is transform and combine. That's very important. The transformation and combination part. You bring that in and magic happens. So, how many of you understand basic Hindi? Just show of hands. Basic Hindi. Yeah? And for those who don't, can I invite one of you to translate the essence of what I'm going to? Now, I can't sing, but I'll sing for you. In my basic kind of, so the essence is not on the focus is not on the singing here, but try to see what is the poet saying in this song from a movie from ages ago, from the time that you were not born in. Aage bhi jaane na tu, piche bhi jaane na tu. जो भी है बस यही एक पल है. What is the essence of what the poet is saying? Live in the present, live in the now. Many years later, there's another movie being made. A specific scene was described to the lyricist, to the musician, and the music director, and the director, and they were all sitting together, and a new song came into being. It was written by Gulzar Saab. Ha ha ha. आने वाला पल जाने वाला
हो सके तो इसमें जिंदगी बिता दो, पल जो ये जाने वाला है. What is the essence of what Gulzar Saab is saying? वो तेरी. Gulzar Saab is not saying anything new, but he found a newer way of saying it. So, friends, you may want to write this down. There are just two ways to tell a story. Say something new, or say it in a manner that is new. Say something new. Now, this is the more difficult part. Invent new narratives. But some of the classic narratives are taking an old narrative and saying it in a manner that is new. Both are valid paths. There's no lesser, more. I can't sit on a high horse and say, hey, hey, hey. You're just saying it in a new way. You know, there's less creativity. There's immense creativity there. Saying something new, there's immense creativity there also. Yeah, so both are acts of creativity, and push yourself towards both of them. Say something new or say it in a manner that is new. Many years later, there was a movie where, hint, hint, let's see who gets this quickly. Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. Whole movie is that. 3 hours of movie, essentially live in the moment. There's a movie where Raj Babbar plays elder brother to Sunny Deol. Sunny Deol, Ghayal. They go to Chowpatty, sing a song in an open jeep, and the song goes like this. सोचना क्या जो भी होगा देखा जाएगा, कल के लिए आज को ना खोना, आज ये ना कल आएगा. Live in the moment. Javed Akhtar very upset now because he says everybody is doing it. Why should I sit behind? So he calls Shah Rukh Khan and says, spread your arms. Calls Shankar Mahadevan, compose this song. As Sonu Nigam sings it. Kal ho na ho. I'll recite a poem. I had to write a Kal ho na ho. हर घड़ी बदल रही है धूप जिंदगी, छाँव है कभी कभी है धूप जिंदगी, हर पल यहाँ जी भर जियो. Live in the moment, live in the now. हर पल यहाँ जी भर जियो. Same story. Yeah, I'll tell you a story right now. I had to write a brief for Coca-Cola at one point of time. Pepsi was beating Coca-Cola in the marketplace. Pepsi was doing really cool campaigns. Remember, ये दिल मांगे मोर, यही है right choice baby, nothing official about it, or another campaign. So all, yeah, the choice of a young generation, etc. All cool Pepsi campaigns. Coke was, this is before Thanda Matlab Coca-Cola. So I had to write a brief. Coca-Cola did a lot of market research and found that today's youth lives in the moment. To inspire the creative team, I wrote a poem. This is how the poem goes. आज जी ले, आज हंस ले, प्यार कर ले आज ही, जीत भी है, हार भी है, हर खुशी है आज ही. You can wrap this also. New context. आज जी ले, आज हंस ले, प्यार कर ले आज ही, जीत भी है, हार भी है, हर खुशी है आज ही. कल हुआ जो हो चुका वो फिर ना आएगा कभी, कल जो होगा कल ही होगा, आज है बस आज ही, बस में तेरे पल यही है, बस में कर ले आज ही, फिर न मौका मिल सकेगा, जिंदगी है आज ही. बात दिल की लाजुबां पे, वैलेंटाइंस डे, बात दिल की लाजुबां पे खुल के कह दे आज ही, फिर न मौका मिल सकेगा, जिंदगी है आज ही. आज जी ले, आज हंस ले, प्यार कर ले आज ही, जीत भी है, हार भी है, हर खुशी है आज ही. I'm saying nothing new. But I'm saying nothing new here.
Yeah, it's just new context. Placed, gully boy context. Right? So, how do you shift contexts? That's something to think about. Now, let's move from there to the next exercise. Yeah? So, now think about a trailer for your game.
How many of you think trailers for the game? Not just game, but trailers for the game. Yeah? Trailer is the introductory story for your game design. Movies have trailers, right? So I'm going to share with you
A trailer from Metal Gear. Has anybody played Metal Gear here? How many players of Metal Gear? Have you played the 3rd edition? Snake. Okay. I am going to play the trailer. The director, Kojima, says that 70% of my body as in work body, right? Body of work is made of movies. Look at the trailer. Identify the inspiration. See if you can understand the music. It's paying homage to music background score from a series of movies. James Bond, opening sequence movie. Do you see that? James Bond opening sequence movie. Listen to the music. James Bondish. No? But more, just something else to read here is how many of you first give enough importance to your own game concept to think that it's worthy of a trailer. When you think that it's worthy, others will find it worthy. How much belief do you have in your own game? That it's trailer worthy. How much belief? A trailer is also a demonstration of belief. That it's worthy of something. It's huge demonstration of belief, of self-belief. And self-belief is also something a little bit like, it's like having passion, right, for something. And passion is also a little bit like, let me use a poor analogy, it's a little bit like COVID. You have to have it to infect others. First, you have to have it, passion, right? It's a huge demonstration of passion for your own product that is worthy of a trailer. So right now, think of a trailer. Now, trailer can't give away story. Now, you thought of story, you thought of character, you thought of stay with the same character. The next exercise, 2 minutes. Trailer has to tease without giving away the story. There are some trailers where you see the whole story, then you say, why am I going to waste my money? I've seen the story here itself. So how do you tease and excite people to come into the game without giving away the game? So it's a difficult story to tell because, how much do I tell which excites people enough? How much do I hold back so that I don't give away the game? Can we try that? Okay, think of a trailer for the character that you worked with in the morning, in the first exercise. Remember you worked with characters, Romeo and Juliet? Now you don't want to give away the ending because then nobody's going to play Romeo and Juliet. Nobody should know it's Romeo and Juliet in the trailer. If people can figure out it's Romeo and Juliet, nobody's going to come and play that game because people have figured out what's going to happen. So there's no surprise then. Yet, you have to give away a little bit of it to excite people to come in. Not easy. Shall we wrestle with the idea a little bit? Yeah? Okay. So think of a trailer, share it with the person on your right or left, listen to that trailer and appreciate it. Share with the person on the right or left. Share with the person on the right or left. Think of a trailer.
Ameen, can I make a small suggestion?
Yeah.
If I don't know, maybe I've come 2 minutes late, so it's already been done. But I have 2 suggestions.
lose a lot of time. We did that in the morning. We not in the exactly the same way, name and this thing, but which industry am I from, why am I here, etc. So what am I looking for here? So we did a little bit of that.
After the session,
We will do that.
people who are interested in spending 10 minutes more,
Yeah,
can
certainly,
The
certainly.
second suggestion I have is that we can make a list of names and numbers of people who are interested and put them on a WhatsApp group.
Sure. In fact, we'll make a list here. We'll put down a writing pad and people will write their names and list and we can take photographs of that and then we can or connect with each other on WhatsApp as well.
I can actually add them all to a WhatsApp.
Very nice idea. Very nice. Huh?
Continue the discussion.
Nice. Lovely idea. Let's action that. Worth action. Yeah, can you think of trailers now? Yeah. Think. Don't give away too much. Don't give away too less also. If you're too miserly, not. ट्रेलर बनाया, अपना गेम बनाया पहले, सुबह रोमियो एंड जूलियट वाला गेम खेला आपने, कैरेक्टर्स डेवलप किया, उनका दुनिया डेवलप किया, अब उसके लिए ट्रेलर बनाइए, सोचिए.
All right. Shall we move further? Now, interesting that, in some trailers, there are people who give away the whole story. And some people will still come for it. They'll come for other things, right? Like VFX, like game design elements, etc. The question is, if you had held back a little bit, thoda sa agar kam diya hota, would more people have come or not? Yeah, so you're designing your trailer to appeal to large number of audiences and bring them in. Trailer जो है लोगों को अंदर लेकर के आता है. So design it like that. आगे चलते हैं. So exercise. Now I'm going to share with you some more techniques, frameworks and methods to use in the narrative world. One of the classic device in the narrative world, पहली technique is choice architecture. Choice architecture. The hero has a choice. The hero, heroine, bug, whatever, right? The hero has a choice. The choice is one of the most important aspects of a game. कि choice होनी चाहिए. Choice में dilemma होता है. ये करूं कि नहीं करूं. ये गेम का बहुत जरूरी हिस्सा है कि हीरो के पास चॉइस होती है. Okay. So कैसे एक्सरसाइज करते हैं चॉइस? आइए देखते हैं. Do you remember this? What is this? Quick, loud, matrix. What is the big choice? You all know this, but एक बार play करते हैं कि Neo मिलता है Morpheus से and Neo meets Morpheus and a big choice. Blue pill or red pill? Yeah, let's, with credit to Warner Brothers.
Let me give you one piece of advice. Be honest. He knows more than you can imagine.
Locate it inside your game.
At last. Welcome you. As you no doubt have guessed, I am Morpheus. It's an honor to meet you. No. The honor is mine. Please, come, sit. I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole? You can say that. I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Do you believe in fate? No. Why not?
Because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
It's very interesting. This idea that control of my life. Who just had that story where the character has control or the character fights for control with the game creator or with the game player? We were discussing that during the break. Yeah. So there's this famous game where the character thinks that the character in the game thinks that I am God. I can do whatever I want to do. As the game progresses, the character realizes, oh, I don't have as much control. The guy who's playing me, the player has control. And there's this big moment of crisis. And now there is battle between character and the game player, which is a very interesting setup. Yeah. So this illusion of choice, or I'm trying to think of it even as I'm speaking of it. It's on the tip of my tongue. Sorry? No, not standing parable. But it'll come back to me. What was that? Bioshock. No, not Bioshock. The one that I'm referring to something else. It'll come back to me. But let's proceed.
Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Do you believe in fate, Neo?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
I know exactly what you mean. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Matrix.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself.
And there comes the choice.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Do you remember something from Men in Black? The taser? It makes you forget everything, you go black. You go back and everything is fine. You don't remember anything. You forget what you saw. Devices change. Yeah, what's your device in your game design, in your story? Choose the blue. What is the blue pill, red pill equivalent? But there is an equivalent in Men in Black. There is an equivalent in somewhere. I'll show you the equivalence. Moral choice.
Remember,
Dilemma.
all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Choice architecture. Tension building up. Consequences. Yeah. Let's go to Harry Potter. Do you remember? Harry Potter? Between life and death. That stage, which is in between stage, which is life and death. Final movie goes to King Cross Station, looking for answers. There is a choice.
Harry, you wonderful boy. You brave, brave man. Let us walk.
Professor, what is that?
Something beyond either of our help. A part of Voldemort sent here to die.
I'm going to fast forward.
Exactly where are we?
Exactly where are we, where you think we are, etc. I'm going to fast forward to this place.
Or in my not so humble opinion, our most inexhaustible source of magic, capable of both inflicting injury and remedying it. But I would in this case amend my original statement to this. Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who deserve it. Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
Professor, my mother's Patronus was a doe, wasn't it? That's the same as Professor Snape's. It's curious, don't you think?
Actually, if I think about it, it doesn't seem curious at all. I'll be going now, Harry.
Professor? Is this all real? Or is it just happening inside my head?
Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry. Why should that mean that it's not real?
Where is this scene
Professor,
taking place?
what shall I do? Professor!
What should I do? Should I take the blue pill? Should I take the red pill? What should I do? Where is this happening? This is where it all started. It's happening at a train station. You can see it's a railway platform. You can take the train and you can escape this, and it's like the taser. You will forget all that has happened. Or you can go back and fight your battle. The choice architecture. Yeah? I'll go to children's story, Pocahontas. Yeah, there is a grandmother Willow offers a choice. Easier English to understand. Easier accent to understand. Interestingly, in all the three stories, the person offering the blue pill, red pill is a wise one, is an older one, is someone who has crossed the Lakshman Rekha to the other side, who's seen things from the other side, comes to offer you that perspective and says, do you want to go there or not? In this case, it's the grandmother, the elder. The Krishna for the Arjuna. The Krishna in the dilemma. Maru ki nahi maru? Maru ki nahi maru? The whole Gita is about answering that dilemma. Karm karo. Karm karo. So what is the choice architecture for your gamer? Right? What is the karm? This is the game is the karma bhumi. In that karma bhumi, what is the choice that I am going to make? That choice will define you. That will be the Gita. I am helping you make the connections in your head.
Is that my Pocahontas?
Grandmother Willow, I need to talk to you.
Good morning, child. I was hoping you'd visit today. Oh, wow. Your mother's necklace.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about. My father wants me to marry Kokoum.
Kokoum? But he's so serious.
I know. My father thinks it's the right path for me. But lately, I've been having this dream, and I think it's...
Oh, a dream. Let's hear all about it. Quiet!
Do you see the device of a dream sequence to provide you the true answer? And the choice, my father wants me to marry someone, but there's a choice. There's a dilemma now. I don't know what to do. Do I listen to my father? Do I listen to this? Do I listen to my dream? Who's helping you resolve it? Grandmother Willow is nothing but, Krishna here or Morpheus here, who's providing you the answer when you are stuck in a dilemma.
Now, child, you were saying.
Well, I'm running through the woods, and then right there in front of me is an arrow. As I look at it, it starts to spin.
A spinning arrow. How unusual.
Yes, it spins faster and faster and faster until suddenly it stops.
Well, it seems to me this spinning arrow is pointing you down your path.
But Grandmother Willow, what is my path? How am I ever going to find it?
Your mother asked me the very same question.
She did? What did you tell her?
I told her to listen. All around you are spirits, child. They live in the earth, the water, the star. If you listen, they will guide you.
It's interesting. The role of Krishna, the role of Morpheus, the role of, in Harry Potter, who's that guy? Dumbledore, or the role of Grandmother Willow is not to provide you the answer. They guide you to the answer, but the answer is you have to make the choice yourself. And that's choice, you have to make the player choose. And this is the big difference between a game and a movie. In a game, the player makes the choice. You take that agency away from the player, then I don't have enough interactivity. But I need that interactivity. That's what draws me in. The dilemma is not for the character, the dilemma is for the player. That draws me in. Now I'm making the choice. I'm dealing with life choices here. How do I deal with this? And the role is you listen. You observe. You listen to the music. You listen to the beats of your heart. You will find the answer. Yeah. So it's not spelt out. You spell it out in a game, it's too simple. I need complexity. Give me complexity. Make it easy. I'll fill in the blanks. But give me those blanks to fill in. Like somebody said many years ago, I don't like the quote, but there's some wisdom there, that when laying a mousetrap, don't fill it with so much cheese that there's no room for the mouse to come in. Yeah. So help someone fill in the blanks. Don't make it very simple.
I hear the wind.
Yes. What is it telling you?
I don't understand.
Que natura, you will understand. Listen with your heart, you will understand. Let it break upon you like a wave upon the sand.
It's saying something's coming. Strange clouds?
Listen with your heart, you will understand. What do you see?
Clouds. Strange clouds.
Yeah, so I can go on and on. This is another important element in game design, in story development, in character development, in plot development, that the hero has flaws. The hero is not perfect. The hero has crisis of confidence. Yeah, and at some point of time, every hero wants to give up. अब मेरे से नहीं होगा, ये पहाड़ में नहीं चढ़ सकता, अब मैं ये लड़ाई नहीं लड़ सकता, मैं इससे आगे नहीं जा सकता. I am, this is asking for too much of a price. I am not willing to pay that price. This is, too many people will die because of this. I am not, willing to bear that cross on my heart. I am not, going to let that happen. So there is that crisis of confidence. When that crisis of confidence happens, what happens? Who comes back to resolve it? You know this.
Your father is waiting.
Lion King. Your father is waiting. This is when Simba has a crisis of confidence. Every Simba has a crisis of confidence. Where Simba says, I don't want to go back to that
Do you
world.
see him?
I don't see anything.
Kuala Selaman. Look closer.
Look closer.
You see? He lives in you.
What an amazing line. He lives in you. The answer lies within.
You see? He lives in you. Simba. Simba, you must take your place in the circle of life.
I can't.
You must remember who you are, the one true king.
Yeah, remember who you are. So there's help is available at Gryffindor to those who seek it. Yeah, but the crisis of confidence is important. The hero is not a superhero. Every superhero has a crisis of confidence where he says, is it worth doing? Is it worth saving Gotham City? Is it worth saving humanity? Is it worth saying, the price for it is too much to pay? Moana, has that crisis of confidence when she is going into this ocean and thinks that I can't do this. Who comes to talk to her? It's actually the same version. The grandmother in a dream sequence comes and talks to her and says, well, the answer lies in you. You see the grandmother coming? This is the grandmother's ghost. And that's why it's short like this.
I tried, Grandma. I couldn't do it.
I can't do it.
It's not your fault. I never should have put so much on your shoulders. If you are ready to go home, I will be with you.
It's the sports coach who's telling the athlete, if you don't want to compete, it's okay. But awakens the challenger in the athlete. This is your war.
Why do you hesitate?
I don't know.
I know a girl from an island. She stands apart from the crowd. She loves the sea and her people. She makes her whole family proud. Sometimes the world seems against you. The journey may leave a scar, but scars can heal and reveal just where you are. The people you love will change you.
Reinstilling confidence.
You have learned will guide you, and nothing on earth can silence the quiet voice still inside you. And when that voice starts to whisper, Moana, you've come so far. Moana, listen. Do you know who you are?
What did Mufasa say? Know who you are. You are destined to be king. The answer lies in knowing oneself. The character has to know. And then comes belief in the character's ability. The highest superpower is not a superpower through a device, but the superpower of making the right choice, the moral choice, and having that belief, Otherwise, it's the spider's web is not the superpower. Being a kryptonite is not the superpower. Being able to cling to, skyscrapers is not the meaning it is a superpower, but the higher superpower is using that device for the better good. Knowing who you are. Patch Adams getting a sign from God, etc. Harry decides to sacrifice himself, has a crisis of confidence that, okay, I will sacrifice my life, but I must save Hogwarts. But then he says, no. And there's a message that goes out that you have to fight this war. The next device, and this is the ultimate device. You want to make your players cry, make them care. Then you have to know what is ultimate victory. Ultimate victory is not about vanquishing the world. The ultimate victory is vanquishing the world within. कि आपको सब कुछ मिल गया, आपने सब छोड़ दिया. Ultimate victory is that. When you win the ring, what do you do with the ring? Lord of the Rings. You have the power. What do you do with that power? You throw that into the fire. Ultimate victory is not winning the ring, but throwing it into the fire. That's ultimate victory. Ultimate victory is when you break the wand after you've got the most powerful wand in the world. You got power, you got the magic wand. And you realize that this is destructive. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. You break that wand. This is your character's victory. कैरेक्टर ग्राफ देख रहे हो आप कैसे कैरेक्टर का ग्राफ आगे जाता है. वेरी फ्यू गेम्स गो हियर बाय द वे. most common games, complex games will go here. Most common games will be about absolute victory. I am king. The true king renounces power. Yeah. Frodo Baggins destroys the ring. Aladdin gets the ultimate power. He gets he gets that lamp. What does he do? I'll show you that clip.
Your last wish. Royalty was the right idea, okay? We should just riff on that a little bit. All right, here's what I'm thinking.
Aladdin, warrior prince, a noble heart in a land where thieves run feral. Jasmine!
You like it? No? Okay, all right, I hear you loud and clear. All right, but this is what you need. The governing laws of Agrabah by royal decree, okay? And here it is. Must marry a prince, right? But you say the words, and this law just kind of like goes away. You and the princess are in it together forever.
You can just make the law disappear?
Please, like it never existed. All right, last wish, let's get it.
Okay. Last wish. Genie?
I'm ready, hold on, here we go.
I wish.
Third and final wish.
I wish to set you free.
What? Whoa, what? Oh! Wait. Am I? Wait. Tell me to do something.
Get me some jams.
Get it yourself? Get your own jams.
No. Thank you, Genie.
That's power. Yeah. The ultimate sacrifice is to win the kingdom and not be seduced by the idea of power. Yeah. So, can an ending make a gamer cry? Anybody played The Last of Us? How many of you played The Last of Us? Ellie,
you get invested in the character Ellie. Why? Because she can save. She offers hope for humanity. The doctors can save this world, by killing her. Who's the first person she meets? Go back 2015, the first edition of the game. Game of the year, 2014. Game of the year later, second edition, 2021. First edition, the smuggler. And the smuggler, completely corrupt, lost his daughter, can see a daughter here, but he has only one task, to hand her over. This is cargo for me. I will hand her over to the doctors, get my payment. Dilemma. By the time the game ends, you're crying. Can you imagine? You're playing a game, a video game. It makes you cry because you invest in the character and the character makes the ultimate sacrifice to have all the power and let it go. So I can go on and on, but I think it's a good place to stop. I'm going to end with 2 or 3 big ideas. And, I want to challenge all the game developers and storytellers in the room here by pushing them in newer directions and saying, there are conflicts that we resolve in the world of gaming of all kinds. But can the game developers here resolve conflicts that make a better world? Resolve and take stories that locate us in better worlds and better scenarios where characters create a better world. So I'm going to play some scenarios out for you. Now, it's an interesting story. What story you want to tell? Whose perspective are you telling it from? So, if you're making notes, whose perspective am I telling the story from? Yeah?
You okay? You need a minute? Cool. Listen up, people. I know a thing or two about extinction. And let me tell you, and you'd kind of think this would be obvious, going extinct is a bad thing. And driving yourselves extinct? In 70 million years, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. At least we had an asteroid. What's your excuse? You're headed for a climate disaster. And yet every year, governments spend hundreds of billions of public funds on fossil fuel subsidies. Imagine if we had spent hundreds of billions per year subsidizing giant meteors. That's what you're doing right now. Think of all the other things you could do with that money. Around the world, people are living in poverty. Don't you think helping them would make more sense than, I don't know, paying for the demise of your entire species?
Interesting choice of perspective. So think stories that go beyond. Today we have many problems to be solved. How are game developers using entertainment and using gaming as a powerful device to change the world? What stories do you want to tell?
The baker had Simone, and everybody saw that she could do the job. The lawyer went to the baker and saw Simone at work. The lawyer hired John because the baker hired Simone. The baker hired Simone. The dentist went to the lawyer and saw John at work. The dentist hired Sophia because the lawyer hired John. Because the baker hired Simone. The baker hired Simone. The farmer went to the dentist and saw Sophia at work. The farmer hired Kate because the dentist hired Sophia because the lawyer hired job because the baker has some own. The baker has some own. The barber went to the farmer and saw a kid at work. The barber had Paul because the farmer had Kate, because the dentist had Sophia, because the lawyer had John, because the baker has some own. The baker has some own. The baker went to the barber and saw Paul at work. He didn't have a clue, but it was thanks to his first move that the barber had Paul, because the farmer had Kate, because the dentist had Sophia, because the lawyer had John, because the baker has Simone, the baker has Simone, the baker has Simone. Yeah, yeah.
Which ailment or Down syndrome? Yeah, think characters that go beyond gay, lesbian, LGBT. There's enough to do there. And that makes a better world. But there's a lot more to be done. And that's not enough being done. Think about character flaws that go beyond not having a superpower or left-handed or being allergic. What about mental health issues? A character that has mental health issues. So how are we creating through our narratives a more equal world? Something to think about. Hold up a mirror. Interestingly, we live in a world that's not an equal world.
This afternoon, we're going to draw people doing different jobs. And the first job we're going to draw is a firefighter.
Have a think in your head what a firefighter looks like.
we're doing the same. What's your firefighter called?
Mine's called Firefighter Gary.
Firefighter Stan.
Firefighter Simon. He's big and strong. He's got a big helmet on.
That's brilliant, isn't it? Next, we're going to draw a surgeon.
Have you thought of a name for your surgeon?
Jim Bob.
Jim Bob.
He's a brain surgeon.
I think he would wear a stethoscope.
He gives you medicine. That's his ambulance.
Okay, next, we're going to draw a fighter pilot.
This is his jet plane. He rescues people. He likes to do stunts in the air and stuff.
Okay, now who would like to meet these people for real?
Yeah!
Are you they're dressed up?
My name's Tamsin and I'm a surgeon in the NHS.
My name's Lauren and I'm a pilot in the Royal Air Force.
My name's Lucy. I'm a firefighter in the London Fire Brigade.
So who wants to know how to do an operation?
Who's putting it on?
I'll try my stethoscope.
We put this in here.
What does it look like?
There you go. Now you're a proper fighter pilot.
So into your ears. Can you hear that? Yeah. It's really good. It's much better, it's much better than the kids' one.
It's an unequal world out there, and you can go out and you have the power as game developers to create a better world and tell stories that hold up mirrors. I'm going to end with one of my favorite stories about the worst game ever in the world. Yes, the worst game ever. Have you ever played Desert Bus? No? It's the most boring game out there. All you have to do is drive a bus from one part of the world to another part of the world. Nothing happens. The bus veers a little bit to the right, but nothing happens. Landscape is boring. There's a fly that comes and hits the windscreen at the 5th hour. That's your excitement in the game. 5th hour, one fly comes and hits the windscreen. It's a test of your ability to stay awake. There's no human in the bus. There's no stake. Nothing happens if the bus goes off-road. You just go back and start again. That's all. Nobody dies. There's no bomb in the bus. There are no stakes. It takes 8 hours and you get 1 point. No life. It's the worst video game ever. Today, for the last 8 years, people play a game called Desert Run for Hope, and it's played every year, where people play this game online and raise funds and one of the most interesting fundraiser called Desert Run for Hope, which has raised $8 million. Gaming has the power, if it leverages the power of narrative, is not entertainment, it's immersive, it's stories that create a better world. May your stories take you to that place. May each one of you be wonderful storytellers. More importantly, may each one of you be wonderful listeners and readers of stories, and may you understand the story structure so that you can break it and create new ones, and people have no clue which story you're telling. They're just immersed so much in that story that your story is what they remember. Thank you for having me over.